In this video, I'll show you how to create a REST API with Express and MySQL. We'll use Express generator to speed up working with Express, then create the REST API using MySQL as a database. We will test requests from inside the application and much more. Okay, let's get to it. Let's first of all make sure that we have MySQL running. So if you don't have it installed, first of all, Google MySQL community server. So this, and you should end up at this page where you can download it for your system. Also make sure to remember the root password, that's very important. And also you should agree to it starting when your operating system starts. Okay, that's how I have it set up at least. And also you don't need to register here, so just download it. And once you have that, you need some kind of a GUI. And I would recommend MySQL Workbench, so this website right here, get that, okay? And also, if you don't want any of this, there's also this website, dbforfree.net, where you have this online database. Basically, you just need to register, and then you use the phpMyAdmin GUI instead of the Workbench, okay? I'm gonna be working with the Workbench, so here it is. Okay, so hopefully you see this, you should get to this point somehow. Once you're at this point, I'm just gonna click here to log in, basically, root and password, and there we go, okay? In here, there are two ways to create databases, tables, and so on. So first of all, you can use this panel here on the left. You can right click and go to create schema, which is actually a database, and so on. Or you can use queries, which is what I'll do. So to use queries, you click here and this will open a new SQL tab, and you can have as many of these as you want, okay? And also I'm not gonna get into detail as to how MySQL works. I hope that you do have some experience with MySQL. If you want me to do videos on MySQL, I'll be happy to. Let me know in the comments, okay? So anyway, here let's first of all create a database. So I'm gonna say create database, and I'm gonna call it shop, okay? So to execute a query in here, you either click here or just Control Enter. Okay, there we go. And you see down here that we have this output, so green check mark, which means it all went well. Next, I'm gonna say use shop, so that I actually use it. Control Enter. Okay, we see down here again a green check mark. And now I'm gonna create a table. So I'm gonna say create table customers, I'll call it. Open and close parentheses and a semicolon, like so. And here I'll say ID int auto increment primary key, okay, and the first name, which will be varchar 20, I guess, is more than enough and not null. And let me actually copy this line and just paste it twice. So this will be last name and this will be email, okay? Get rid of this last comma. And even if you have multiple lines like this, but they're basically one block, if you hit Control Enter anywhere in here, it should execute this whole thing. So let's see, Control Enter, and there we go. We have a green check mark, so it's all good. Now let's say show tables, and here are our tables in shop database. Okay, let me just close this. We can also say desk for describe tables. I mean the customers table. Control Enter, and now we see how it's built. Okay. Let's now create a new user for this database. So in this other query tab, and again you can use as many as you want. You don't have to use just one. I'm going to say create user, and I'm going to call it admin in single quotes at, and then localhost single quotes, identified by, and the password in single quotes, which will be pass for me, okay, and a semicolon. So Control Enter, and I'm missing a single quote there, so Control Enter again, and there we go. Let me just clear this, right click and clear, and then I'll say grant all. So to grant all privileges on customers, actually on shop, the database name, and dot star, so everything, all the tables in shop, to, and let me just copy this. Okay, Control Enter, and okay, there we go. And let's now actually connect with the new user. So I'm gonna go here to this home icon, and I am going to click here to create a new connection. And I'll call it shop, I guess, and the username is admin, and the password here store in vault. Click, and I'll say pass. Okay, and let's see if this actually works. And there we go. So here we are in the shop instance basically, and here we have the other one as well. Okay, so you can just switch between them up there, but I'm gonna be in here now. So now if I say show databases, as you can see, I only have the shop database here, whereas here I have many. Okay, so that's just for the admin user that I just created. Let's also use a database, so use shop, Control Enter, and show tables, and there we go. Okay, so it's all good. Let's now insert some rows. So I'm gonna say here insert into customers, and first name, last name, and email. Values, actually a comma here because I'll have multiple rows here. So I'll say John, Jones, and john@gmail.com. Okay, and let me just copy and paste this twice. So this will be Mary Jones and Mary here, Gmail, and Bob Smith at Bob@gmail, that is. Okay, and the semicolon here. So Control Enter, let's see if this actually works, and it does. Let's say select star from customers to select everything, and there we go. That's our content basically in the table. So it's all good. Let's delete one. Delete from customers where ID is, let's say, 1. Okay, so Control Enter, it executed. We can see right here. So if I click here again for this line, Control Enter, and now there's just Mary and Bob here. And we can also delete all. So delete from customers should do it. Control Enter. And I have a green check mark, but that's probably not going to work for you. If you're using Workbench for the first time, you need to set the setting, which is Edit Preferences. Let me just see. And SQL Editor here, and down here there it is, Save Updates. So just make sure that's unchecked. Okay, then you can delete all. And let me just re-enter this. So just click anywhere inside of this query here, Control Enter, and there we go. Let's just check. Okay, it's all good. We just have different IDs, of course, now because we deleted these rows and then re-enter new ones. Okay, that should be it for the database part. Now we can get to Express. For the API, I'm going to create the project inside of this projects folder I created. So in here, I'll just right click and git bash here. So I'm using git bash on Windows, which I highly recommend you do as well. And instead of doing npm init and then express, I want to use express generator, okay, which will just set up everything for us. So I'm gonna say mpx instead of npm, and express dash generator, and the name of the project, so MySQL API, I guess should do it. And I don't want to have any views, so I'm gonna say double dash no dash view. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, seems to have worked. Now I'm gonna change directories as it says, so cd into it, cd my, and I just tap to get the whole thing. And now npm I. I or install is the same thing, so just install everything. Okay, let's fix all of this. So npm audit fix double dash force, and hopefully now it's all good. I'm gonna be using Visual Studio Code as my editor, so I can say here code and dot, and it should open it up. Okay, great. I added this .gitignore file in the meantime, just because I created a new Git repository here for this project, so I can do a commit after each significant part of the video. Okay, so everything else is the same. So let's actually start this project and see, or this application, and see if it even works. So Control J in VS Code to open up this panel. I'm gonna go to the terminal here, and I have PowerShell by default because I'm on Windows, but I want to use Git Bash. Okay, so to actually start this, I'm gonna say npm start. And we can see here that it runs node and bin www, which is this right here, which we'll get to in a minute. Let me just go to localhost 3000. Okay, so it's 3000. I know it is, even though you don't see it here, and it works. So that's good. Now let's go quickly through the files here, and there's really not much to it. So www is the start file basically, and we can see, maybe I missed it right here. Here's the port number, okay, which you can change. So again, this is just the main start file basically. Then we have this public folder, which is of course for images, JS files, and CSS files. There's also this index.html. So here, for example, we can see in the title Express, and that's where it comes from. So if I say 1, 2, 3 here, and I actually need to restart, and I'm going to start it with nodemon instead of npm. Okay, so nodemon will make it so that it restarts after each change. If you don't have it, install it globally, so nodemon I-G. Okay, I have it, so I'm just gonna say nodemon start. Okay, and let's see now. Yeah, I changed the H1. I meant to change the title, but still you see that it that's what it's rendering. Let's see, I had to refresh, so express 1, 2, 3. Okay, and here as well. So that's that file. Let me just undo this, and when I save, this isn't being affected. But if I change something else, so if I change a JS file, for example, it will be affected with nodemon. So if I just go into this file and just press Ctrl S to save without changing anything, it's fine. You can see here it restarts. Okay, but for this public folder or just this file, I'm not really sure, it doesn't. Let me just see. Yeah, it's ignoring this whole public folder, so that's fine. So anyway, let's just continue. That's public, then come routes. But before routes, let me open app.js. Okay, so in here we just have the basic Express setup. Express require Express, and so on, app Express. And also we have these routes here, so that's very important. And then we have them here as well, we're using them here. Okay, and these are coming from the routes folder, which is right here. So these are basically controllers, okay? And that's why it's useful to use Express generator, because you simply get all this stuff out of the box, which is really helpful. So we can see here in app.js that if I go to this route, basically, I get the index router, right? So this index router, if I control click it, I can jump to the file in VS Code. It's right here, and we can see that it's a GET request for the root domain, and it renders the index.html, okay, the index file. And for example, users, it just sends the response. So this is just basically text. And here it says root as well. So how come this isn't the actual root? It's not the actual root because we can see right here that its root is actually /users. Okay, so that's its root. And for the index router, its root is actually the actual root. Okay, so if I go to /users, I get that text respond with the resource. Okay, and that's basically all there is to it. Let's now create our own router controller. So in the routes folder, right click, new file, and I'm gonna call it customers.js. Okay, and from users, I'm just gonna copy everything and paste. So we need this express, and yeah, it's using var still, which is kind of ridiculous, but is the way it is. What can you do? So anyway, it's requiring express here, express router, and then we get this route basically. Let me just change this comment to, I have it usually like this, so the request type, so get, and then the actual route, so this one will be /customers, okay? And let's just say here customers list. So this here is request, response, and next to move on basically, but we don't usually use this in these routes. So I'm actually just gonna get rid of it, and this is this should do it. Now in app.js, I am going to shift hold down that line in VS Code and call this customers router, and it's gonna come from routes customers, right? And then define it down here, so shift hold down and Control D to select the whole word and /customers, okay? And this is supposed to be customers router now, okay? So its root for this controller will be /customers. So when we go to /customers, we should see the default route for the customers controller, okay? Let's see, let me just open Control J the terminal here so that I see if there are any errors. Seems good. So /customers, and we see customers list. Okay, great. Let me also just get rid of this users. Just delete it. And in app.js, let's see, get rid of it, and here as well. I'll leave this one, the default one, because so just we have something if we go to the actual root of the website, okay? Okay, so far so good. Let's now try to actually connect to the database. So to do that, first of all, here in the root, I'm going to right click and add new file and call it db dbconfig.js. Okay, and this can go in a folder as well, but I'm just gonna have it here. I guess it doesn't make much difference because the application is pretty small. And here I'll say const dbconfig is gonna be equal to an object, and here I'll pass the user admin, password is pass for me, host localhost, database is shop, and I'll pass the time zone as well. So we need all this for the module I'll use, which is called MySQL. Okay, Shift Alt F to format this, and in customer, Shift Alt F to format as well. So now I get 4 spaces here for tabs, which is what I prefer. Okay, looking good so far. Now let's install that module. So I am going to open a new terminal here. So click here and git bash, and let me also close this PowerShell, I don't need it. So make sure I'm in the right folder here, and I'm gonna say npm MySQL. Okay, there we go. And now in the customers route here or controller, I'm going to first of all require it. And actually I forgot to export dbconfig. So module exports dbconfig. Okay, and if you don't know how modules work in Node, make sure to watch my Node basics video. There's a section on modules. Okay, so anyway, in here now, let's first of all include the MySQL module. So I'm gonna say here const MySQL, and that's gonna be equal to require MySQL without the I, like so. Okay, let me just click here to go to this terminal where I have the server running, so that when I save I can see if there's a change because it auto restarts. I mean, if there's an error. And for now, I'll just take the whole thing inside of this get here just to see if it works, and we'll make this better as we go along. But for now, let's just see if this even works. So first of all, I'll require the dbconfig. So const dbconfig is going to be equal to require and dot slash dbconfig. Okay, shift enter to add a semicolon to the end of the line. And of course you can check out the MySQL module, its documentation. I know how it works, so I'll just do it. Okay, here I'll say const db and MySQL create connection to create the connection, and pass dbconfig in here. Okay, shift enter again, and now finally I'll say db and connect, and have error here for error and a fat arrow, so the arrow function. So if error, throw error, otherwise I'll just console log connected. Okay, shift alt F to format everything. So this is what happens for me. Let's save and see what happens. Okay, let me refresh here. Cannot find the module dbconfig. Okay, and that's because I was supposed to go one level up. Let's try again. Okay, there we go. But here we have a problem. So let me bring this up so I can actually see what the problem is. And it's this. Okay, so for this I am going to just copy this whole thing, Control C and Google it. So I get to this Stack Overflow answer, and the answer is this right here, okay? So I'll just do it. I'm gonna go back to my SQL Workbench, but I'm gonna go to the root instance here, okay? And in a new window or wherever, but I'll just use a new query window. Let's see here. We need this. So I'll paste that, and the user is admin, and the password is pass. Okay, so Control Enter, and there we go, that worked. And also we need to flush privileges, so just copy and paste, go to that line, Control K, there we go. Okay, let's see now. Let me just Control C to get out of it, and arrow up for the last command, node must start again, and let's see now if I refresh, and there we go, connected, it's all good, okay? Let's now try to insert a row into our table. So here in the get customers route, instead of this console log here, I'll get rid of it. And I'll create a new object, so const customer, and first name Mike, and let me just shift all down twice, last name Jones, and email will be mike@gmail.com, and just Control D this, email. Okay, and now to insert, I'll say db query, and insert into customers, set and question mark. Okay, so this question mark is the value or the values. So I'm gonna pass the customer here, and finally a callback, error and result. I'm missing the closing parenthesis there for some reason. And here again, I'll just say if error, throw error, otherwise I'll console log the result, I guess. Okay, save that, no errors here. Let's refresh this page, and let's see here. So seems okay. Let's check our table here. Let me go to the shop instance here and select all from customers, Control Enter, and there we go, Mike Jones. Okay, great. Let's use connection pooling when we are interacting with the database, which will make it much more efficient. And I'll show you what I mean, but for now, let's just start doing it. First of all, I'm actually going to create a new folder in here called database, and I'm going to drag this dbconfig in it. Okay, so move that, and it's asking me to update imports, and I'll say yes, which is actually great. Let me just save so it restarts. Okay, seems to be working, so that's really good. And in here now, I'll create a new file, and I'll call it connection pool.js, okay? And here I'll say const connection pool, and for now it's going to be an object, and for now I'm just going to have this init method in there. So function, and just console log for now so that we see if this even works. And here I'll say initializing pool. Hopefully that's how you spell it. And let's export it. Module exports connection pool. Shift Alt F to format everything. Okay. And I want this method to run as soon as the application starts, so I'm gonna add it in app.js. Okay, so we could even add it in www. It should work regardless, but let's just add it in app.js. So here I guess I'll say const, and connection pool is gonna be equal to require, and I don't get any help. So that's in database and connection pool. Shift Alt F. Okay, let me just space this out a bit, the routers here, and maybe here or even here, let's add connection pool and init. Okay, so if we restart this, we see here initializing pool, so that's great. Let's now make connection pooling actually work. So in connection pool.js here, I am going to have a pool property here, which will be null, and then this init, instead of this, is gonna say this pool is gonna be equal to, and MySQL create pool. Okay, and we need to pass dbconfig here, so let's require this up here. Let me just copy and paste. Actually, it's in the customer's route. Let me just see, here it is, so copy this line and paste it here, and the config as well, copy and paste. Okay, save to restart, now it's fine. And I also want to have a getPool method here. So that's gonna be a function which just returns the pool. Okay, and now let's modify the code in the customer's route here. So now we don't need this dbconfig in here, and we don't need MySQL here either. Okay, so I'm just gonna change this actually to connection pool, and this will require from database connection pool. Okay, and here now let's see, we can get rid of this as well, and this too. So this dbconnect we don't need, so I'm gonna get rid of this and this here. Shift Alt F just to make sure the code is good. It is. Okay, so now here instead of db query here, we don't have this db anymore. I'm gonna say connection pool and get pool. Okay, and then do the query. Shift Alt F to format, and there we go. So if we save this, let me just check the console, it's all good. And let's just select all here just to see what we have. So we just have the 4 rows. Okay, and now let's refresh again and see if we actually have one more row now. And we do. Here's another mic. Okay, so great. So what's so great about pooling? Well, if I jump into my SQL Workbench here, and if I say here show process list, Control Enter, we can see our connections. Okay, so basically we just have the 1, 2, but this one is sleeping, so and this is basically it, because it's only us using it. But what if I do this 100 times? Okay, so let me wrap this in a for loop. Okay, so for I0, I less than 100. Cut this, have it down here. Shift Alt F to make sure it's all good. It is. Okay, so now we do this 100 times, right? So let's do it. Refresh here, and if I check my SQL Workbench, my SQL Workbench here, select all from customers. As you can see here, we've inserted 100 rows here basically. But the point is, if I show process list, notice that I only have 10 connections basically. Okay, even though I did 100 queries. So that's why using pooling is much more efficient than not using it. Okay, it reuses what it can instead of doing a brand new connection each time it needs it. Okay, So that's the benefit of using pooling. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. Let's now handle a post request. So right now we are adding a row or a customer from the via the get request, which is not what we should do. It should be a post. So let's do that. And to do that, I'm going to actually just shift all down all this and change this to post. And this is fine, the URL. And let me get rid of this for now. And here I'll just log, let's say, post body. And to actually get the body or the content, I need to say rec.body. Okay, so that's how it works, Shift-Alt-F. So how do we, let me actually change this to post. So how do we check if this post request works? How do we trigger it? Well, you could use, for example, Postman, which I do have, and I'll probably use that for my next video, which is going to be REST API with MongoDB and Mongoose. But since we're going to be using Axios to handle requests, we can use Axios also to test that from inside of the application as well, which is pretty cool, actually, I believe. So I'll do that in this video. But you can use Postman as well if you wish, it's no problem, but I'll use Axios to test. So Control J, and if I go to my other terminal here, I need to install Axios, so npm I Axios. Okay, there we go, Control J to hide this, and now I am going to create a new file here in the root. So new file, and I'll call it request test.js. Okay. So first of all, I'll require Axios, const Axios require Axios, like so. And now I need an object here. So for that, I am going to copy this, paste that, and then I'll say Axios post. And the URL, which is this. So let me just copy it so I don't have to write it. And pass the customer. And this is a promise, so we can say .then. And the response fat arrow log response catch error and well, yeah, console log error. Okay, I got some help there, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now to actually test this, I am going to Control J, and in here I am going to say node and start typing the name of the file and tab. Okay, and let's see. If I go here, I see the post body. So that looks good. So it seems to be working. Okay, great. Let me just delete everything from customers here, which I did already, but let me just do it again while on video. So delete from customers, Control K. Okay, so now it's empty, just so we don't clutter up this space here. And now let's actually insert into the table. So to do that, I'm going to go to customers here. Let me Control J to hide the terminal, and I don't need this object anymore. I am going to cut from get here and paste in post. Okay. Control// here to comment this out. Shift-Alt-F to format. And for the get, let's just say something. So copy this line and actually cut it from here as well. So we need to change here this customer to rec body, and that should actually do it. So save that, go to this terminal here and say node request test. Okay, and let's see if this actually worked. Let's first of all check here actually. So we get this response, which seems to be working. So in here now, Control Enter, and there we go, we have Mike, so it works. Okay, great. Let me just Control C out of here, just so it stops. Let's now add the missing routes. So we need to get a single customer and handle put and delete requests. And we're not actually going to interact with the database right now. Let's just add the routes and make sure they work. Okay, so here in customers controller or route, shift hold down the get one, and this will be get /customer/some ID. So I'll say colon ID here, and the route is / and colon ID. Okay, so this means variable basically. This can be anything, and for now I'll just console log. Here say ID, and to get the ID I need to say rec params ID. Okay, and I'll also say res send status 200, which means okay. So let's see, Control J just to make sure there are no errors here. Okay, so now if I go to /111 for example, I get ID 111 here. Okay, and here I get okay, but this is more important. And if we go to /1, I get 1. Okay, so that works. Next, let's handle actually the put request. So shift hold down this, change this to put and put here, and this will now say body, and we need to console log the body here. Okay, the rest is fine, so the URL is the same. Now in request test here, let's shift hold down this post. I want to keep it just for your convenience basically. Control /, you can remove it if you want. And this one will be put, and we are passing the object here, but we need to pass an ID here as well. So it doesn't have to be a valid ID from our database, the table that is, because right now we are not interacting with the database. So I'll just say 111 or whatever. And let's see if this works. So I'll say here node and request as JS. Okay, and in here we see the body and put request here. Okay, 200, okay is the response and so on. So that's good. And finally, let's handle delete. So just shift hold down and change this to delete. This will be delete as well, and we will actually console log the ID, so rec params ID, change this to ID as well. And in here, shift hold down, comment output. This is delete, and we're not passing the object now. This is the URL. Okay, let's see. Run it, go here, and there we go. The ID is correct, and delete, and the URL is correct. Okay, so it's all good. Let's now create a repository for our database methods so that the code is more organized. So here in the database folder, I'll create a new file and call it customer repository, JS like so, and then here I'll have that class, so class customer repository. And in the constructor, I want to have the connection pool. Okay. And this connection pool is equal to connection pool. Okay, great. Now in customers controller here, I need to include it. So here I'll say const and customer repository is going to be equal to require and one folder up, database and customer repository. Shift Alt F to format, Control Enter to go to the next line, maybe one more, and here I'll say const repository and initialize it. Okay, so that's gonna be equal to new customer repository, and I'll pass connection pool here. So this right here. Okay. And now let's see for the methods in here. I'll have a save and the get, which will take an ID, and the get all to get everything, update, and delete, which will take an ID. Okay, so let's do save now. Here I want to pass the customer and the callback. Okay, so I'll say here this connection pool, get pool, and call query, and let me just copy from the post here. So this, paste that, and pass the customer and the callback. Shift Alt F to format. Okay, that looks good. And in the post request here, I can now get rid of this, and I'll get rid of this as well. And now I'll say repository. So what I included right here, I included the repository here and initialized it here, right? So repository and call that save method. So I'm passing the rec body here and the callback with error. So here I'll say error. If error, I'll say res and status 500 and the JSON and say error and air to string. Okay. Otherwise, if there's no error, I'll just res and send status 200. Okay. Shift Alt F to format this, and let's now see if this actually works. So let's first comment out the last name here and just see if we get an error. So comment out delete and then comment post, and let me just see once again what they have here. Okay, so let's see what happens. Oh, we have a bit of a problem. Let's see what it is. Customer repository is not a constructor at customer.js. Okay, let's see what's up with that. Oh, I forgot to export it. Okay. So module exports customer repository. Okay, save. Let's see now. Okay, and node request.js, and let's see what happens. And here is our error. Okay, because last name is missing. So that's great. And if I check here, I still have just the one mic. But now if I uncomment that and run this again, seems okay. And if I check here, there's the other mic as well. Okay, great. Let's continue and do the others. So first of all, I'm going to add a getter here. So I'm going to say get pool, and I will return this connection get pool, just so I don't need to write that every time. Okay, so now here I can say just this pool and Shift Alt F to format. Okay, just makes for cleaner code. And let's now do the update. So for that I need to pass the ID, the customer, and the callback. Okay, and let me copy and paste here from save because it's kind of similar. So this will be update customers set question mark, but where ID is equal to question mark. Okay, so we need to pass both these values, and to actually pass them here, this will be an array. So customer and the ID. Okay, Shift Alt F to format. And now in the controller here, or the route, here's our put. So let me get rid of everything in the body here of the function and actually copy from post paste that. So this will now be update. And here we need to pass rec body, but before that we need to pass the ID. So rec params ID, right? And that should do it actually. So let's see. Let's see first of all here. So we have 110 and 111 IDs. I do at least. You need to check for yourself what you have. So let's say now here Mike Stevens, for example, and uncomment put, and let's just see what happens. So go to this terminal, node request test, okay, and let's see, and there we go, update successful. Okay, we have Mike Stevens here, and here in the put request, I'm not checking, for example, that this ID actually exists. Okay, so it's a bit of an overkill for this API, and I don't want to waste too much time on it. So you could check, of course, if the ID actually exists, maybe use transactions as well, but I'm just going to leave it like this and put in the actual ID that I know exists. Okay, let's see now, let's get all. So here we just pass the callback and nothing else. Whoops, not there, but in here. Okay. So here I'll just say, let me copy from here again. So this pull query and simply select all from star, that is from customers. And we just pass the callback. Okay. Shift-Alt-F to format if needed. And let's see here, where is it? Here it is. Once again, I'll just take this and paste it here, get rid of this line, so this will be get all. And we're just passing the callback here. But let's actually pass result here as well, and then instead of just sending the status, let's say status here 200 and add JSON to this and actually see the result. Okay. So save that, and if I go now here to /customers, here it is. And it's nicely formatted like this because I have this JSON formatter extension for Chrome. Okay, so that's great, that works. Let's see what else do we have here. We have get ID, and we're actually gonna pass the callback as well. Let me copy paste from get all, and this will be select from customers where ID is question mark, and pass the ID here, Shift-Alt-F to format. And again, let's copy from this get all basically. Okay, and we're passing here rec params ID, and this is supposed to be get. Save that, Shift-Alt-F actually as well, and let's see. So if I go to /111, let's see here. Oh, this is supposed to be select star from customers. So let's see now. Okay, so there it is, and if I go to 110, which I know I have, there it is. Okay, great. And if I go to a non-existent one, I just get an empty array. Okay, so again, you can of course handle that, check for that and then handle it, but it's good enough for this video. And finally, let's do delete. So again, ID and callback, and let me copy this one, doesn't make much difference I guess. So this will be delete from customers where ID is question mark, and pass the ID, Shift-Alt-F to format. And in the controller, we're just gonna send the status. So let me copy, for example, this one here, find delete, where is it? Here it is. So paste that in here. So this will be delete, rec params ID, and no body, just the callback. and looks good. Let's test this and see if it does actually delete. So uncommon delete here, 111 we have. Let's just make sure again. So let's see, select all from customers. Okay, we have 110, I do at least, and 111. So delete 111. Let's run this. Okay. And there we go, it's been deleted. Okay, that's gonna be it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.